title for this course, self-blessing, is kind of unusual. It's not a word we use commonly, and I actually took it from a poem that I'm fond of. It is perhaps one that many of you have heard if you have kind of been on the Dharma trail over the years, listened to Dharma talks, particularly talks on loving kindness. It's a popular one. It's a poem by Galway Connell, St. Francis and the Sow. I'd like to read it here. The bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower. For everything flowers from within of self-blessing. Though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow of the flower and retell it in words and in touch, it is lovely, until it flowers again from within of self-blessing. As St. Francis put his hand on the creased forehead of the sow and told her in words and in touch blessings of earth on the sow, and the sow began remembering all down her thick length, from her earthen snout, all the way through the fodder and slop to the spiritual curl of the tail. From the hard spininess spiked out from the spine, down through the great broken heart, to the sheer blue milken dreaminess, spurting and shuddering from the 14 teats into the 14 mouths, sucking and blowing beneath them. The long, perfect loveliness of sow. So sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness. So it returns to self-blessing. So that's a bit of our agenda for this class, is in some way to rediscover our loveliness. You know, and being a human being, it's so complex. We are a composite of so many parts, so many cells, so many versions of ourselves, some of which we may not find so lovely, some of which may pain us when they come out. And to one extent or another, we may have suffered from the contraction of rejecting what is in us. Perhaps not all that is in us, though there are some extreme forms in which we reject all that is in us, in depression, even suicide. So there's a funny way that the human animal can turn on itself and forget the miracle that it is. And sometimes, especially in the places where we find ourselves ugly, where we feel shame, to reteach ourselves the loveliness that's there, to rediscover it. This is part of the, should I say, the joy of this as a path. But sometimes it just requires that we reperceive something. And it blossoms. not unlike children, that if you dislike them and tell them what's bad in them, they live up to your expectations and start acting badly. There's so much in us that responds that same way if it doesn't receive the right kind of attention from us. If it doesn't receive the right kind of mirroring back to it, so that it understands itself and feels itself understood properly with the eyes of love. So I will do my best to guide you here, though I know that there are many in the audience who have a great deal of skill in these matters. I'm not really the only one, though I get called the teacher. This art of reteaching ourselves about what is lovely inside of us. And I decided tonight to start with what felt like the beginning, to start with the body itself, as perhaps a simpler place to start than all of our psychological complexities. And as I began to kind of feel into what needs to be said about the body, I realized that I really wanted to point out the body as blessing us every moment, and the body as a conduit of our ancestors, a conduit of such a long history of beings caring for themselves. It was a thought that brightened my heart, so I wanted to share it. You know, it's so common, it's so easy for us to turn on the body in a number of different respects, so I thought I'd mention them. I thought of three in particular. One has to do with illness. And I'm one who has suffered with kind of chronically not feeling well in my adult life. I'm in a pretty good place now, I have to say, and I'm very happy with that. But I was in quite a malaise for many years, what people call chronic fatigue immune deficiency syndrome. And now it gets called ME, and I'm not sure I can quite come up with that name, myoencephalomyelitis, I believe, which sounds more like a disease condition than chronic fatigue syndrome does, and that's probably why it should be replaced. But if you feel ill at all, or if you are just suffering from pain anywhere in your body, it's easy to turn on it. It's easy to feel aversion, like I hate this. It's easy to feel like the body has betrayed you. It's easy to feel dislike. There can be the energy of curse toward the body when it's not working right. And when it does it, you know, for me, it's somewhat easier when I just have an acute illness and the body feels bad and one can just sort of collapse into bed and not pay much attention to life for a while, and it's over. But there are all these other conditions that go on and interfere with what we want. And that thing in ourselves who feels it's its job to get whatever we want, which we call ego sometimes, when it feels obstructed, it's frustrated. It's frustrated with the body. I've certainly spent some time being frustrated with my lack of energy and brain fog. and other symptoms I won't go into. I certainly know that place. But all the while that the ego turns on the body is chugging along, doing its best, perfectly reflecting causes and conditions, whatever those are, be they genetic, be they environmental, be they what you fed it, how you've treated it, be it accident, something that's happened to you. The body is reflecting perfectly causes and conditions, and it's trying its hardest. It's doing its best within those causes and conditions to give you what you need, to keep you alive, to get you from place to place, to think about the things that your mind wants to think about. So what you might try this week is to, if you are somebody who suffers from illness of any sort or pain, to see if it's possible to shift that a bit to friendliness, a friendlier attitude toward the pain. You know, I'm currently experiencing muscular pain in various parts of my body. Also don't know exactly why. And but it's sometimes nice to sit and just create a field of goodwill all around the places that hurt. Rather than kind of, like, with it. You all know what I mean, especially you aging baby boomers like myself. Maybe you younger folks aren't quite there yet, but just create a field of friendliness and goodwill for the body, whatever it's going through. To bless it. The second way that we often turn against the body has to do with our appearance. And as so often is the case with the way we become critical of ourselves, there's a social component here. There's a way that we as social animals are highly attuned to how we fit in with our group and what is valued there, what's not valued, what gets admired, what doesn't get admired, what gets a date, what doesn't get a date, And so it's very easy when we perceive anything in our body as suboptimal, ugly, unfit, to turn against it. And our turning against it sometimes can just feel like indifference, just indifference to the body, indifference to how it feels, indifference to how it looks, which is a subtle kind of way that we're unhappy with it, but we don't feel any agency or power about it, so we stop trying. So you might try that on for size. Is that something that resonates with you? Is there something about your appearance that receives your dislike, that has the energy of curse around it? To see if you can undo that curse. And one of the things that I have not liked about my body, other than the way, it has felt at times, but in terms of its appearance, is my profile and my chin. My chin kind of sticks out. And, I don't recall anybody really making fun of that. I don't really remember it being like the way some things can be for children or for teens, like pudginess or other things. I don't remember it ever really being the object of other people's negative attention. But it certainly got mine. And So I would notice, if I had a picture of my profile, I wouldn't like it. There's just this feeling to it. And somewhere early on in my practice of meditation, when I learned loving kindness practice, I realized I wanted to make that part of my practice. And so I visualized myself, and you can do this if you have some part of the body you are aversive to. Visualize it when you meditate. So I visualized my profile. I'll give it to you here. I visualized my profile and I said, the words of loving kindness, which were probably, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, sort of stuff. And at some point, not too quickly, something got kind of cooking. And the mind took over and it started showing images of myself from the side, happy. It was almost like something in me received it and turned it around. And you know how sometimes your mind is almost like feeding you images? It's like active imagination, a little bit like what you might do if you ever do some shamanic work where you just go into a bit of a trance and the images just sort of do themselves. I began to see myself happy from the side in social groups. And it was like a real blessing coming back to me. So I could go into other body parts that have not been up to snuff in my mind, but it will just stop with that. That gives you a good example. And then there's the way that we just use the body like it's a slave. The overworked aspect of our lives. The kicking the mule aspect of the body. Where we just do too much. And when the body sends us a message, I'm tired, we just drink another cup of coffee. We just make it keep going. A little of that is good for the body. If you go out running, you can increase your stamina by pushing it a bit. It's not like you have to give in to the body's every kind of whimpering of, I'm tired. So there is an important way to exercise the body, but I'm not speaking about that. I'm talking about the way we tend to see our body as just the means to everything we want and ignore its pleas until it finally succumbs to an actual illness. We just ignore it. So if you resonate with that as a certain relationship you have with the body, there's a potential practice there of being kind to your body this week, of resting, for example. What a novel idea. And maybe this, coming from a man who's in his 60s, it may sound a certain way, but I really encourage people who are younger to start the habit now of resting, even though you have the capacity. You have the capacity to push yourself far more than I do at this age. It's not too early to start being kind to your body. There's, of course, all different ways of self-care through diet, exercise, sleep. I won't go into those. Most of you know those already. But I'm working with kind of the attitudinal ground of our being. Whether we're meeting our experience with goodwill, with love, with kindness, with blessing, or whether we're meeting it with curse, with aversion. And to begin this very close to home here with the body, very close to home, and both observe your relationship to the body this week and see where you can shift it towards friendliness. You're welcome in doing your daily practice of meditation, and I, of course, encourage you to do a daily practice during this class, to spend a little time with the body in one of these dimensions, either where it doesn't feel good or where it doesn't appear the way you'd like, or some other aspect of kindness. Use your meditation that way, but certainly don't feel restricted to doing this as a meditation. This is a way of life, this path of self-blessing. And it is the foundation of your ability to love others. How you treat your body has a lot to say about how you are in the world more broadly. Okay.